What's up, drafters? Thank you for tuning in. Have you been having trouble this offseason navigating on who to draft and where when it comes to the quarterback position? Well, have no fear. Your boy Disco's got you. Here is our top 20 quarterback tier list for the year 2023, exclusively on Drafters Fantasy Sports. Great intro. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it and talk about quarterback number one. That's none other than Josh Allen. Right now, he's going as the 24th player overall on Drafters Fantasy Sports. You're going to see him anywhere between the late second round, even mid portion of the second round. I think he's going to start dropping towards the third round, and that's where he's going to be a phenomenal value, especially since we have him projected as quarterback number one this year. Let's talk about his season last year. So last year, Josh Allen finished as a quarterback number two. He had 4,283 passing yards. He had 35 passing touchdowns, 762 rushing yards, and 7 rushing touchdowns. Elite numbers, but it could have been better. And I'll tell you why. Last year, remember the game where the Buffalo Bills had that overtime thriller against the Minnesota Vikings and Josh Allen got dinged up? He actually hurt his throwing elbow. Needless to say, prior to that game, and set aside the whole debacle where they fumbled on the 1 yard line and all that good jazz, but prior to that game, he was on a record-setting pace at the quarterback position just for fantasy football in general. Josh Allen took too many unnecessary hits, and there's a lot of hope this offseason because he was actually quoted by Bleacher's Report in an interview where they asked him, you know, what has changed this offseason? He said, I took a lot of dings last year, understanding where I can be better in that process, not taking hits, not taking useless hits, getting out of bounds, sliding in terms of just watching film and understanding when the decision is to maybe put the shoulder down or to slide or to get out of bounds. I think that is one aspect that I've started to look at and incorporating in my plan. Translation: Josh Allen is not going to not run the football. He's just going to be smarter when he does run the football so he could be a more efficient quarterback throughout the whole season. Had Allen not gotten injured against Minnesota, we would be seeing a completely different tune, not only as a fantasy record-breaking quarterback, but also as a potential Super Bowl winning championship. In the offseason, they also added significant pieces, one being Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid came in as the number one tight end in most people's 2023 rookie draft rankings. And he's very versatile in the sense where, yes, he can be efficient and effective in the run game, but he can be versatile where he can not only just line up at the tight end position, but he can line up in the slot, win one-on-ones against safeties or slower linebackers, or you can line him out wide where he can win one-on-one red zone targets against smaller DBs. And with DeAndre Hopkins being recently released and him expressing that the number one quarterback that he wants to play with this year is Josh Allen, if Hopkins ends up in Buffalo, Josh Allen has all the tools you need to break fantasy football. So now that we've talked about Josh Allen, let's talk about number two on the list. That is none other than the Super Bowl winning defending champion, Patrick Mahomes. Right now, he's got a current ADP of 21. So he's also going mid-second round, but predominantly people are reaching to stack him with Travis Kelce. Yes, Travis Kelce's going in the first round. Yes, he's aging, so on and so forth. But I'll tell you why Patrick Mahomes is dropping in a minute on my tier list and why you should expect him to drop to number 2 or even number 3 this upcoming season. But before we get into that, let's talk about his phenomenal Super Bowl winning 2023 season, or 2022 season, I should say. And this is why. Last year, he finished as a quarterback number 1. He had a crazy 5,250 passing yards, 41 passing touchdowns. He had a mediocre 538 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, but nobody's going to say, oh, we want Patrick Mahomes because he's going to rush the football. Yes, he has that dual threat ability, but we like him more as a passer than a runner. Now, the reason why I'm fading Patrick Mahomes, and fading is such a bad way to describe it. The reason why I'm concerned with Patrick Mahomes dropping this season is because they lost a lot of significant pieces this offseason. Let's talk about it. So they lost receivers Juju Smith-Schuster and Nicole Hardman. Whatever, that's cool. They were both pivotal parts in that receiving core, and Juju came on late. Yes, they retained Kadarius Toney, but do we think Kadarius Toney is going to come in and be a wide receiver one and a leader in the locker room? I don't think so. If you think so, please tell me why. They also signed this offseason Richie James, the wide receiver from the New York Giants, another guy who hasn't put on a full season yet. And yes, he has a lot of upside, but he also has a little bit of issues when it comes to character and just overall staying healthy when it comes to a football season. They also added Rasheed Rice, wide receiver out of SMU. He's got a good blend of size, length, speed. He has a second gear that allows him for decent vertical separation, works hard to keep cornerbacks stacked once he's on top. Needless to say, he's a good addition, but here's where they really are going to find trouble. They lost 2 offensive tackles this offseason. 1, Andrew Wiley to the Washington Commanders. 2, Orlando Brown Jr. to the Cincinnati Bengals. If you guys read the quote there where he was talking about Orlando Brown, he says, yeah, it hurts because like we had a great relationship on and off the field. Translation, that means, crap, I'm going to be running for my life. I'm not going to have a lot of time to get the ball deep to these speedsters like Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Richie James. Travis Kelce is going to be double covered more often than not, and Mahomes doesn't want to run the football because he does have what's the way to say this where I'm not calling him soft? He does get hurt because he does take bad hits, and he gets in these high risk situations where, yeah, needless to say, he's still top 2 quarterback. Draft him, keep drafting him. Phenomenal upside. If they also get DeAndre Hopkins, that changes a lot of things, but their defense also got significantly worse. They're not going to be running the ball as much because they're going to be playing catch up and or just in shootouts. So expect him to pass the ball often. Hopefully Mahomes can stay healthy, but I think he's going to take some significant damage this year, especially since his 2 tackles are now gone. Going on to quarterback number 3, and he was my favorite quarterback last year. That's none other than Jalen Hurts. Right now, Jalen Hurts is going off the board as QB1. So he's being drafted 18th overall. So yes, that second round. Yes, you're getting that stack with, either Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, or in the third round, you can get Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. I think this is too high for Jalen Hurts right now, simply because I don't see him repeating the volume that he did on the ground last year. There's no signs indicating that he could be durable and withstand that kind of violence and that kind of volume when it comes to rushing. Needless to say, let's talk about his season last year. He finished off the 2022 season as quarterback number 3. He had 3,701 passing yards. He had 22 passing touchdowns. Where he stood out and why we like him a lot is the 760 rushing yards and the 13 rushing touchdowns. Is that sustainable? No, not at all. And the Eagles need to protect their main asset. So do I see him repeating as that number 1 rushing threat for the Philadelphia Eagles? I hope not, because I want to see him play a long and illustrious, phenomenal career. But let's talk about the Eagles and Jalen Hurts and the kind of offseason they had, because they've only improved. They had the best draft out of all the other teams. They snagged 2 Georgia Bulldogs in the first round with Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. That's the defending champs. Yes, Jalen Carter has a lot of red flags, but he definitely strengthens that defense, especially up front. He also had a record-breaking contract for about a week at $255 million. And it also includes $110 million in fully guaranteed money. Fully guaranteed money is simply because, yes, he plays a high-risk style of football where he's running a lot and taking a lot of unnecessary hits. Had he not gotten hurt last year in the last couple of weeks, we would probably be talking about a completely different most valuable player. Nevertheless, let's also talk about more offseason acquisitions in the likes of DeAndre Swift, where they traded a 4th-round pick during the draft to acquire this running back. I believe DeAndre Swift, when healthy, is a more versatile back than Miles Sanders. We can expect more production in the dink and dunks to DeAndre Swift because he is a very high-level elite pass-catching threat out of the backfield, and we can expect that he is an undersized back, so he's not going to steal a lot of work in the red zone. Speaking of work in the red zone, contrary to popular belief, the news about pushing the quarterback and the quarterback sneak is it has not changed. It is the exact same. The rule's still as normal, which is great and very beneficial for Hurts in the sense that last year in 2022, the Eagles converted on 90.5% of the quarterback sneaks, 29 out of 32. So that's not only getting first downs if your fantasy league equates for first downs and gives points to that, because that's huge, but it also equates for many of his 13 rushing touchdowns that he had last year. Nevertheless, to summarize, Jalen Hurts has pretty much the same O-line. He has a new threat in the running back room. He has quite possibly a top 3 tandem at the receiver position. Dallas Goedert's coming back. He has a new contract. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but I don't expect him to repeat the numbers he did last year because they have to protect their most valuable asset. Speaking of valuable assets, let's go to quarterback number 4. Before we talk about quarterback number 4 and why I cut myself off at the end of that video is because I realized I made a very crucial mistake, and I know you guys are going to troll me for it, but I deserve it, and it's too late for me to go back and edit it, but I misspelt number 4's first name. I know it's L-A-M-A-R, Lamar Jackson, not L-E-M-A-R, Lamar Jackson. Nevertheless, we digress. I'm not going back to edit it now, so troll me all you want. I messed up, but you won't mess up drafting Lamar Jackson this year, and I'll tell you why. First and foremost, he's going off as player number 32 based on ADP on Drafters Fantasy Best Ball Tournaments. You can find him anywhere between the mid 3rd round to early 4th round. Getting a stack with Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson right now on Drafters is very easy. It's very convenient. That's going to change as the season progresses and as this video starts getting a little bit more volume, because I'm going to tell you why Lamar Jackson could potentially be the quarterback 1 after this year. Nevertheless, if you do sign up on Drafters Fantasy Sports, use code DISCODRAFTS1, get up to $100 match with your initial deposit. Now that we've paid the bills, let's talk about his season last year, and do not let his season last year have any effect on how you should feel about Lamar Jackson coming into the season. He got hurt like just a little bit after halfway through the season, didn't finish the season. He had a contract dispute, all that jazz. So I finished the 2022 season as quarterback number 14. He had 2,242 passing yards. He had 17 passing touchdowns, 764 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Whatever. It was terrible. It wasn't great. He has a new contract. He has a new offensive coordinator. He's not going to have 3 tight ends and a defensive tackle playing fullback this year. He actually has a real offense, so we get to see Lamar Jackson be more of a pocket passer. Mark Andrews was quoted, I believe, either yesterday or today saying, Lamar Jackson looks so good in the pocket. I'm looking forward to him playing under this new system. I think he's going to do well. Mark Andrews has faith in his guy. I have faith in his guy too. Let's talk more about his offseason. As we mentioned earlier, Jalen Hurts broke the record for a contract for any position, and he held it for a week, and then Lamar Jackson broke it. So yeah, he has the highest paid contract, and it's cool. They also added 2 significant pieces in the offseason, one in the draft being Zay Flowers. They drafted him in the 1st round, and then Odell Beckham Jr., who took a whole year off. He should be healthier, and he's under a 1-year prove-it contract. I believe the Ravens are paying him $15 million. The most significant addition that the Baltimore Ravens added this offseason was the coach, the offensive guru from Georgia, the championship-winning Bulldogs for the last couple of years, Todd Monken. All right. Now, if you're not familiar with the college game and Todd Monken, he has a more traditional style offense where, yes, Lamar Jackson's rushing ability may be affected, but I'd rather have a Lamar Jackson for a full season than have him for 3 spike weeks where he runs the ball 30 times. Pair that with the fact that J.K. Dobbins is healthy. His knee is now much better. We're not going to see him limping as he goes 8 yards. Hopefully not. Gus Edwards is healthy, so he has his dual RB monster back. It should protect Lamar. If Lamar should stay healthy this season, he should jump even higher than number 4. And I know I have him ranked higher than a lot of people do, but that's because I know he broke fantasy football before, and I believe he could break fantasy football again. Let's talk about quarterback number 5 on our list. That's none other than cool Joe Burrow. Right now, he's going off at the ADP on Drafters Fantasy Best Ball Tournaments at 44. So you could see him towards the mid 4th round, early 5th. Sometimes you get a great opportunity to stack him with Jamar Chase if you pick 2nd overall. You can also stack him with a T. Higgins, who usually falls around the beginning to mid portion of the 2nd round. Let's talk about Joe Burrow's offseason, or not his offseason. Let's talk about his 2022 stats. So in 2022, Joe Burrow was quarterback number 4. He had 4,475 passing yards. He had 35 passing TDs. He had 257 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns. Mind you, those numbers are very good. Don't get me wrong. But had Joe Burrow not gone under a major appendicitis surgery where he actually had a very slow start to begin last season, we would be talking about a completely different set of numbers when it comes to fantasy production. He's not a tremendous threat when it comes to rushing the ball, but he does have that ability to rush because he is a very athletic player. He has a very scary duo when it comes to the wide receiver position, but where I start worrying is the running game. So we'll talk about the running game. They lost their running back who protected the ball better than a lot of running backs, other than his rookie season where he fumbled twice. Samaje Perine protected the ball and had 0 fumbles since. He's now with the Denver Broncos. Good luck to him. We'll be talking about Samaje Perine in another video about how he is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, fantasy sleepers this upcoming season. And then running back Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon last year, you remember, he was going late 1st round, early 2nd round. He had a horrible season. And to add to that, he also is in legal trouble. Bengals running back Joe Mixon pleaded not guilty to 1 count of aggravated menacing. Court records show Mixon was granted whatever. Anyways, well, I can't say that word. But what does that mean? If Joe Mixon doesn't play, they're going to have a problem because they're not going to be able to run to set up the pass. And if they can't run to set up the pass, I worry about Burrow's durability. But if the Kamara situation last year's any indication on what the NFL will do and what the Bengals will do and what the legal system will do in general when it comes to Mixon, I think he's going to avoid suspension this year, and you can catch him anywhere between the late 5th, early 6th round in all the best ball tournaments. Another trend is steal, and he's in a contract season. And if you watched our contract running back video, you know that these guys got to get the bag, and when they got to get the bag, they ball out. All right, up next at number 6, we got Justin Fields. Right now, he's going off the boards a little bit higher than Joe Burrow with the ADP of 42 in all of your drafters' best ball tournaments. So you could catch him towards the beginning to late 4th round, sometimes even 5th round. But the amount of times I've seen that is very few in between. Let's talk about his 2022 stats. In 2022, he finished off as a quarterback number 6, went relatively undrafted or very late in most drafts. Not best ball drafts, mostly redrafts. In best ball, he was still going towards the later rounds. He had 2,242 passing yards, which is not elite or tremendous, but he had no time to throw the ball. He had 17 passing touchdowns, which was okay. He had 1,143 rushing yards, Jesus, and 8 rushing touchdowns. Now, his rushing upside alone throws red flags because, as we discussed earlier with Hurts and Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and all these versatile dual threat quarterbacks where they are a tremendous threat when it comes to running, we think that Chicago and their manager, their general manager, and the whole front office, they effectively took notice about these trends and they decided we're going to invest in this guy, this quarterback. Because believe it or not, he was a really, really good passing quarterback when he was at the University of Ohio. But let's talk about their offseason. So they added Darnell Wright in the draft in the first round. He's a road grader, offensive tackle. They got him from the University of Tennessee. He's absolutely phenomenal. They picked up offensive guard Nate Davis from the from the Tennessee Titans. They also picked up Robert Tonyan, a great blocking tight end. Last year, towards the end of the season, they also signed or traded for Chase Claypool. This offseason, they picked up Donta Foreman. They also made a huge trade to get a true number one wideout in Chicago with DJ Moore coming into town. And one of the best draft picks this entire NFL rookie draft, Roschon Johnson out of the University of Texas. And everybody's like, well, I mean, there was a running back at the University of Texas, and his name was Bijan Robinson. But Bijan is like an outlier as like one of the greatest running backs in university college football history. If Roschon played anywhere else other than the University of Texas, we'd be singing his praises and talking about him potentially being a first-round running back as well. So Roschon, great value, great steal. Do I see Roschon starting off the season as the RB1? Probably not, but towards the later half of the season, he is going to have significant numbers. Last year, they finished off as the second worst team when it came to passing because they had a horrifically their offensive line was awful. It was horrible. The rushing game was a very great top 2, top 3 rushing attack. Justin Fields carried majority of the load. Yes, they lost David Montgomery, but I feel like with Khalil Herbert being healthy and the addition of a young Roschon Johnson who has a lot to prove in his rookie season, that he is the guy. Justin Fields is going to have more time, especially when it comes to them setting up the play action. That run game isn't going to go anywhere. But we get to see his arm this year, and we get to see him protected. And he has the offensive line now, so it's a no-brainer. He is one of my favorite quarterbacks coming into this 2023 season. But this next guy is probably my favorite quarterback in general, and he is my early favorite for the MVP, and that is none other than Mr. Trevor Lawrence. I love me some Trevor Lawrence. Right now, he's going at the ADP of 59, so you could see him towards the end of the 5th round, early 6th, maybe mid-6th. But yeah, after this season, that number is going to go up significantly. Let's look at his 2022 stats. Just let me pull that up. So last year, he finished as a quarterback number 8. Tremendous improvement from the year before. The Urban Meyer experience was awful. So needless to say, last year was an incredible jump. He had 4,113 passing yards. He had 25 passing TDs. He had 291 rushing yards. And he had 5 rushing touchdowns. This guy was electric. Obviously, the first couple of weeks were weird, but they got a good head coach in Doug Peterson. They got a tremendous running attack. They added Tank Bigsby in terms of the offseason. And then last year, they traded for Calvin Ridley in November. So they have a true wide receiver number 1, which means Christian Kirk is going to be facing one-on-one coverage. Evan Ingram, if he should stay healthy, is also going to have tremendous upside. All signs are pointing to the Jags really making a push this season and competing at a very high level. And don't be shocked especially since you heard it here first, that Trevor Lawrence might end up as the 2023 MVP. So right now, based on ADP, he is my favorite quarterback and probably my most drafted quarterback. But up next, let's talk about the guy he crushed in the playoffs. That's none other than Justin Herbert. What's there to say about Herbert that hasn't already been said? He was a first-round draft pick. He has all the potential and upside to be an elite quarterback. The only thing has been holding him back is a lot of injuries at the wide receiver position and poor coaching decisions at the offensive coordinator position. So we'll get into that after we talk about his 2022 stats. And yes, he did get hurt after the week 2 matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. Had he not gotten hurt, we'd be talking about completely different numbers, but throwing for 4,739 passing yards, even having broken ribs, is significant. He also threw for 25 passing touchdowns. He had 147 rushing yards and 0 rushing TDs, probably because he just didn't want to get hit. In the offseason, in the first round, they picked up Quentin Johnston, wide receiver out of the University of TCU. You could read the strengths if you want to pause it here. But nevertheless, he's a great threat and has all the potential to take over as the wide receiver 1 in that room because Mike Williams and Keenan Allen just can't stay healthy. I wouldn't be shocked if this is Keenan Allen's last year in the LA Chargers uniform. Where I really get excited when I'm talking about Justin Herbert is them adding new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, previously the offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. He's going to have a more unique approach to this offense. It's going to be more fun. They're going to implement the run. Austin Eckler is in a franchise tag year with a lot of incentives, so he wants to get that extra money because we don't know how long the running back position is going to last. So expect more production and touchdowns to Austin Eckler. Expect Eckler to perform as he has been performing, but the addition of Quentin Johnston really gives him that security that, yes, if Mike Williams goes down, if Keenan Allen goes down, I still have 2 really good, solid receivers in Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnston to rely on. So Quentin Johnston might be one of my favorite wide receivers from this draft, simply based on his situation and where he ends up. Now that we've talked about the A tier, we'll get into the B tier. Be right back. All right, now starting us off at the B tier may come as a shocker to you guys, but after all of my research that I've done this offseason, I'm very confident this guy being the next quarterback that we're going to talk about, and that next quarterback is number 9, Dak Prescott. Right now, you can currently get him at the ADP of 94. Great value. He's going off as a quarterback number 10 or 11, I believe. So yes, we have him way ahead of ADP currently on Drafters Fantasy Sports, and I'll tell you why. But before we go into that, let's talk about his 2022 stats and where he ranked in terms of finishing off. In 2022, it was a less than spectacular season due to an injury early on for the first 4 to 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. He finished off as the quarterback number 18. He had 2,860 passing yards and 23 passing touchdowns. He had 182 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. Yes, they got crushed in the NFC semis. But if you guys look back, here, I'll pull it up. 23 passing touchdowns. So in 12 games, Dak played 12 games. In 12 games, he had 23 touchdowns. Had he played a full, healthy season, we're looking more around 35, 40 if you factor in that his first couple of weeks, his throwing thumb was still recovering from surgery. So I say that to say this. They made all the necessary moves in the offseason to make Dak comfortable and place him in a situation to succeed. One, they brought in a actual wide receiver number 2 in Brandon Cooks. 2, they got rid of Ezekiel Elliott and his ridiculous contract, so they got to address other situations. 3, they brought in a more conventional offensive coordinator in Brian Schottenheimer. And yes, sure, the head honcho is going to be making his play calls, and we're talking about Mr. McCarthy. But Brian Schottenheimer is a very traditional power run to set up the pass offensive coach. He is schematically sound, and they also added a very crucial piece, and he's probably my favorite last overall pick in these Drafters Fantasy best ball tournaments in the 20th round. That's none other than tight end Luke Schoonmaker out of the University of Michigan. Dude is prototypical large tight end. He's got great feet. He's got phenomenal blocking. So you're not going to have to, when Dalton Schultz was in the Cowboys offense, the issue with Schultz is they knew that he was insignificant when it came to the run game. So defensive backs and linebackers didn't have to play honest when they saw him come into the lineup. With Schoonmaker, he is as good of a run blocker as he is as a pass catcher, and he's really good at both. So once they get those stacked boxes, Schoonmaker is going to be a threat over the top in this more conventional run to set up the pass offense under Schottenheimer. Nevertheless, I see efficiency from Dak Prescott. I see an actual direction in terms of offensive play calling. It should be a much better season for Dak and the Cowboys, especially since they were able to address a bunch of missing pieces because they had such a significant contract under Zeke, and Zeke was underperforming. Zeke was still okay, and he's still a free agent. He's going off the board at round 15, round 16 right now. He's going to sign somewhere. He's going to score. Neither here nor there. Let's go to quarterback number 10. That's Mr. Tua Tagovailoa. How did I do pronouncing his name? So we'll talk about his 2022 stats. They didn't really have much in terms of the offseason this year, so we won't talk about the offseason too much. So in 2022, he finished as a quarterback number 15. He had 3,548 passing yards. He had 25 passing touchdowns, 70 rushing yards, and 0 rushing touchdowns. And I know those rushing numbers are terrible, but I hope it's worse this year. I don't want to see him take any more unnecessary hits. When Tua was in that offense with the best tandem at the wide receiver position, both Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, he was electric. He was phenomenal. He played only 13 games, and he had 25 passing touchdowns. If Tua stays healthy, and that's a big if, but all of these players take these incredible risks. If Tua stays healthy, we're talking about top 5 quarterback. We're talking about maybe even first quarterback overall when it just comes to sheer passing production. This offseason, Dolphins didn't make too many significant moves that affect him offensively. Yes, they brought in Devin Achane, but I think the most significant piece is like he's looking tick. And by tick, I mean thick. Like he looks like he put on a significant amount of size. I found it very cool that he now has a camera on his helmet, so him and McDaniels can both look at his reads and what he's seeing and make him a more efficient passer. And hopefully he can get rid of the ball sooner rather than later so he can avoid taking those critical hits. But Tua right now is going off the board as the 97th overall player based on ADP. And if you can get a Waddle or a Tyreek Hill, it makes no sense not to pick up Tua. He has all the promise of having one of the highest ceilings in the 2023 season at the quarterback position. Yes, it's a gamble because he does have a history of injury, but if you play football long enough, you're all at risk of being injured. So whatever. Tua, number 10, B tier. We love him. We expect big things from him, and we hope that he stays healthy. Number 11 on our list. I was going to say an inappropriate joke, but let's keep it PG. We got Deshaun Watson, who's going off the board before both Tua and Dak. He's going off the board as player number 83. You can expect him towards the later end of the 7th, 8th round. when he's healthy and when he's right mentally, dude is a monster. He's a problem. But when he played last year, it was horrible. He served, I believe it was a 12-game suspension, something ridiculous. He hadn't really played football for 2 years and a half, I guess. So he finished last year as a quarterback number 35. Not a surprise. He looked rusty. He looked terrible. He looked like he had no idea what he was doing. He had 1,102 passing yards, whoop-de-doo, 7 passing touchdowns, 175 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. I do see him being a little bit more comfortable in the offseason. I do have a description of like the contract that he signed, but we're all aware that he signed a significant contract and he needs to earn every penny. We also are aware of all of his offseason drama with the whole massage situation, and I hope everybody finds peace at the end of this. I think the only significant addition to talk about is Elijah Moore. With the addition of Elijah Moore, it allows them to expand the offense where they can go 3 wide receiver and even go in an empty set where Njoku can play out of the slot, and they could spread the ball out a lot more. Pair that with the fact that you have the most reliable running back in football in Nick Chubb. Deshaun Watson has all the tools to be an elite top tier quarterback. We just hope that he doesn't sabotage himself this year, and we hope that he is no longer in the headlines for the wrong things. And if they do add a DeAndre Hopkins, obviously they have that camaraderie and that ability to play off of each other, and they know each other very well. Nevertheless, that is number 11 on our list, and we'll talk about the next guy in a sec. All right, now that we've gone through our top 11 quarterbacks, I think it's okay if we start speeding through this a little bit. So at number 12 is one of my favorite prospects who doesn't have a lot that he's shown in college, but he is a tremendous athlete, and he also had a story that I'm going to discuss. It's not really an off-season move or anything, but I've just found it being a cool story. So at number 12, coming in on our top tier, top 20, 2023 quarterback list is none other than Anthony Richardson. Right now, you can find him at the ADP of 88. I actually see him falling down towards maybe the 100th to 105th overall player. I feel like there is a little bit of risk factor, but if he's your first quarterback off the board, you have all that rushing upside because he's an elite and tremendous athlete. Obviously, we don't have stats to go off of last year, and being a rookie, he didn't play last year, so we could talk about his character and his combine numbers, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So the story that I fell in love with and that made me really just like Anthony Richardson as a person, like I'd want my son to do things like this, is this story tweeted by Don Kleiman. He said, awesome, after a recent NFL rookie event, Colts 20-year-old quarterback Anthony Richardson decided to stay behind after everyone else exited and clean up a big mess left by the players so the staff wouldn't have to do it alone. Richardson explained that it was unfair to expect the staff to clean up the mess left by the draftees. He insisted on staying to help until the room was completely tidy, even though he was given the option to leave after NFL executive Troy Vincent, formerly of the New England Patriots, go Pats, told him, "You don't need to do this." Richardson told Vincent, "We left this room in an unacceptable condition, and it's not right for us to expect the staff to clean it all up." The Colts drafted a young man with high character, high integrity. I like that story. I like that story a lot. How do we go from a guy like Deshaun Watson in his situation where, like, once again, we're not going through all the details because it's disturbing. And once again, we hope everybody has peace, to a guy like this. I love the character. I love the player profile. And what I love as much as I love the character and the player profile is the athletic paralysis that this guy provides. So he's a 6'4", 244-pound quarterback. He's the size of most defensive ends, outside linebackers in the league. He ran the 40-yard dash in 4.43 seconds. He cleared 40.5 inches in the vertical jump and 10 feet 9 inches in the broad jump. Yeah. Those are elite numbers. Those are elite combine numbers, which took him from virtually somebody who would be drafted maybe in the third, fourth round to somebody who was selected where he was selected, in a top 5 pick to the Indianapolis Colts. Yes, the Colts have Gardner Minshew, but we know who Gardner Minshew is. I want to bet on Anthony Richardson. I want to bet that he's going to be a good, productive quarterback. The only other recent prospect that we've seen coming out of university who shares very similar traits and player profile is Trey Lance. Not discussing necessarily the whole character thing. I don't know much about Trey Lance or his character. I'm assuming he's a good guy because he's not in the headlines for anything wrong. But he didn't really play a lot in college. Didn't see much of him in high school. He's an athletic specimen, athletic freak. I want to bet on Anthony Richardson simply because of his character. And I mean, if you pair that character with an elite athletic profile, you should be all right. Next on our board is another guy with a lot of athleticism. That's none other than the New York Football Giants quarterback and very highly and quite frankly overpaid number 13 Daniel Jones. Right now he's coming off with the ADP of 102 overall in all of your drafters fantasy sports. Definitely a great 9th to 11th round value, especially since he has that rushing upside. We'll talk about his breakout season under Coach Brian Daboll right now. Just simply go over his stats. So in 2022, he finished as a quarterback number 9. He had 3,205 passing yards. He had 15 passing touchdowns, which is kind of worrisome. He had 708 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. Now, why are we worried when it comes to Daniel Jones? It's simply for the fact that Saquon Barkley may hold out. And if Saquon Barkley holds out because Daniel Jones signed the bag and Saquon didn't, then Daniel Jones is not going to have a lot of free time to one, have the offense focus so much on such a pivotal portion, or sorry, have the defensive unit cue in and focus and drop a plan against Saquon Barkley. Gave Daniel Jones the ability to run freely. We saw, based on the numbers, yes, the wide receiver core is like injury ridden. We saw, based on the numbers statistically, that Daniel Jones didn't really do much. Like, his production in the passing game was not phenomenal, and he played a full season. So he's going to require that rushing upside. And if Saquon's not in there to take the threat off of the read option, that edge defender is going to play it way more honest, and he's going to attack Daniel Jones, and it doesn't look good. So if Saquon plays, Daniel Jones will jump up on our board. He'll probably enter the B tier as well as the other 4 names that we mentioned in the B tier, but right now he might even go lower than the C tier. We'll talk about some offseason moves. I just really like the fact that Robert Griffin III is one of the funniest people on Twitter. If you don't follow him on Twitter, please do. They signed recently Darren Waller in a trade. RG3 tweeted, Darren Waller just got married to Kelsey Plum of the Las Vegas Aces, and Josh McDaniels' wedding present was to trade him to the New York Giants. McDaniels is not a romantic. Great tweet. Hashtag great tweet. All right. Other than that addition of Darren Waller, who's not falling in the 7th or 8th round in all these drafters' best ball tournaments, Jones signed a significant contract. Saquon didn't, and that does not help Daniel Jones. Yes, they added wide receiver Jalen Hyatt. Do I think he's going to make a significant difference? No. They have 7 wide receivers, all with the same player profile and I don't think I want to do with any of them. The only reason why we draft Daniel Jones is we know that we like his rushing upside because his passing upside is horrendous. Absolutely horrible. But if Saquon signs, I'd be more inclined to start taking Daniel Jones in a little bit more of these drafters best ball tournaments. It's only June. We've already drafted around 35 lineups. So hopefully we can get a little bit more shares of Daniel Jones down the road. So let's go to our next quarterback number 14, Mr. Kirk Cousins. I hate him. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Right now, his current ADP is at 102 as well. You could see him fall significantly simply because he's just not reliable. I think he's the thing holding back that offense in Minnesota. Let's talk about his 2022 season. He finished off as the quarterback number 7. He had 4,547 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns. Should have been way more, especially with his passing threats. And his rushing yardage and touchdowns, not much to talk about. 97 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Neither here nor there. In terms of the offseason, they brought in Jordan Addison. They got rid of Adam Thielen. KJ Hawkinson's coming back now after a full offseason with the Minnesota Vikings. And Dalvin Cook still has not been released. We're recording this as of June 4th, 2023. So if Cook is to be released, whatever. He's not on the Twitter banner. I'm not high on Kirk Cousins. I don't love Kirk Cousins. If you get the first overall pick and manage to get Justin Jefferson, then yeah, pick him up in the 12th, 13th round. Why not? Right? But the fact that he is more inclined to sabotage his season by turning the ball over than to go out and win a game is just indication that they're not renewing his contract. You shouldn't renew your faith in him repeating what he did last year. Let's go on to the next guy. This next guy, we might lose all faith on if he doesn't figure it out this year. And the fact that I have him ranked above 17 other quarterbacks can be tricky, and I do have my fair shares of him. That next quarterback is Russell Wilson. Doesn't he look skinny in this picture? God, he looks like he's 60 pounds lighter. Right now, Russell Wilson, you can find him on drafters best ball tournaments with the ADP of 125th overall. I do see him going up because a lot of people are starting to realize, man, they had some good offseason moves. But yeah, his 2022 season was abysmal, and we'll talk about why it was abysmal and why you should have hope and faith for this upcoming season, because I do see him sliding up into the B tier. Maybe even the A tier, but let's stick to reality. B tier, I see that jump happening. Okay, so stats. He finished off as a quarterback number 16. He had 3,524 passing yards. He had 16 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing yard, and 0 touchdowns. Now, why was Russell Wilson so bad? 1, he was in a timing offense that is built and catered towards taller quarterbacks, so it did not fit the mold. They brought in a brand new coach. I don't know if you guys heard of him, but it's a former Super Bowl winning quarterback guru whispering Mr. Sean Payton. Historically, him and short quarterbacks get along great. I don't know if you guys heard of this guy named Drew Brees, but they did some pretty phenomenal stuff. Let's also talk about why Russell Wilson sucked last year. And kudos to him. He actually played through a torn lat in his throwing shoulder. And this was around the 5th. So October 8th is when the article came out. So for more than 3/4 of the season, he was playing with a torn lat in his throwing shoulder. All signs are indicating that he is fully healthy. He played through a very tough injury. He definitely has a lot of fortitude. He has the ability to come in and succeed. Not a lot of people are expecting a lot of success. That's why he's so high on my ADP. I think he's now currently ranked as quarterback 22 on drafters quarterback rankings. We have him at quarterback 15. Once again, this is my ADP. This is my tier list. This is how I foresee things simply based off of offseason moves. I think he has a very productive season. They also added wide receiver Marvin Mims, who's a low-key sleeper that you could get in the 13th or 14th round. I highly recommend it. And avoid Cortland Sutton. We hate Cortland Sutton. All right, next up, number 16, the new New York Jet, Mr. Toe Jam himself, Aaron Rodgers. Not much to talk about. He has great threats, 2 of them in the passing game. He has Alan Lazard, which he was formerly teammates with in Green Bay, and they really did diddly squat together. And then obviously he has somebody who you really should have a lot of high hope for and high praise and could quite possibly finish as wide receiver number 1 is Garrett Wilson. If their connection is anything like Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and Garrett Wilson's a way more explosive. Yes, and I know you're not going to agree with this. A lot of people are going to disagree. Garrett Wilson is a way more explosive athlete, way more explosive, okay, than Devontae Adams. Pair that with the fact that Breece Hall may be relatively healthy. Right now, you might be able to snag Aaron Rodgers at a relatively decent price. I believe he's going off the board at, with the ADP of 115 overall. So you can get him in the late 11th, 12th round. He usually falls a little bit later. Do I see him doing what Brady did when Brady went to Tampa his first year? Absolutely not. I see him doing what Brett Favre did when Brett Favre went to New York after his time with Green Bay. Moving on. And we're not writing him off, but we are. We got Mr. GENO Smith at 17th overall, and I know he finished last year as quarterback number 5, and I know he had a great season, but the schedule is a lot tougher this year. They are still a run-first team, despite adding Jackson Smith and Jigba and keeping the 2-headed monster of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Right now, you can snag GENO Smith on drafters' best ball tournaments at the ADP of 114th overall. Is he a great quarterback? No. Is he a bad quarterback? No. In best ball, is he a safe quarterback? Absolutely. Just because he's 17th overall does not make him, a bad quarterback. He's going to have some spike weeks and he's going to have some horrible weeks. He doesn't have much in terms of competition over there, other than the fact that they like to run the football and like to run the football quite often. So yeah, I told you we'd speed through this. All right, moving on. Number 18, also a guy I'm not too high on. I hope Hendon Hooker replaces him because I have Hendon Hooker in my Dynasty League, and I love me some Hendon Hooker. Had he not gotten hurt, he would be QB1 easily. He would have gone over Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson. Like, you wouldn't talk about any of these other quarterbacks. Hendon Hooker is a beast. He's the future of the Detroit Lions. I love me some Hendon Hooker. Right now, you can get Goff at 120th ADP on Drafters Best Ball, and Hendon Hooker goes undrafted. So if Hendon Hooker does play, boy, oh boy, what a great pickup that could be in the last round if you do have a Jared Goff and you go 4 quarterbacks. I wouldn't recommend going 4 quarterbacks, but since there's 20 rounds, if you go quarterback late, you could afford it. Moving on to the next guy on our tier list. I told you we're going to finish this off in a blaze. Number 19, Matthew Stafford. God, they looked atrocious. The Los Angeles Rams did not do a good job defending the Super Bowl. They did not do a good job managing their salary cap. They did not do a good job building capitals to remain a consistently competitive team. They've done not much in the offseason. Their draft, yes, they had more draft picks, but they didn't add anybody significant. Yes, Cooper Kupp is going to be healthy. Yes, Stafford had a lot of time to recover. Yes, Sean McVay is still the head coach. That's why he is sneaking into our top 20 list. He has historically been a decent quarterback. And with the ADP of 149th overall, he's a good QB number 3 in your best ball drafts. If you need a third quarterback, you can get him anywhere between the 14th to 17th round. I definitely see him falling quite a bit. And for quarterback 20, it was a toss-up between 2 players. Initially, I had chosen Jordan Love, but since we're getting more news about Trey Lance getting healthier and his quarterback mechanics are being fixed, and Patrick Mahomes' quarterback coach is coaching him up and giving him a lot of praise and showing him the tools of the trade. Trey Lance has high upside. He goes in round 17 to undrafted. Jordan Love, you can find him anywhere between rounds 14 to round 17. In terms of offseason, the Packers had a pretty good one where they added players like Jaden Reed, who I'm very high on, and I'm more inclined to draft Jaden Reed than I am to draft Jordan Love, but it's not a bad stack. Christian Watson's coming back. They still have two really good running backs who are going to carry the load in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. So that's why he's here. He's not going to be left hanging. He knows the offense. He is a seasoned pro at this point. He's been in the league quite some time. And then Trey Lance, we're just drafting him based off of ceiling. That's it. That's all. He is an athletic specimen, athletic freak. And yeah, guys who I considered putting in the 20th place is Kenny Pickett. I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers made significant advances in the offseason, improving that offensive unit as a whole, especially in the blocking room. And I do see Kenny Pickett improving drastically. Desmond Ridder, maybe. Mac Jones has zero poise, but with Bill O'Brien coming in, he could fill in. But as of now, June 4th, 2023, these are our top 20 quarterbacks. So let's go over the list. Number 1, Josh Allen. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes. Number 3, Jalen Hurts. Number 4, Lamar Jackson. Not L-E-M, but L-A-M-A-R Jackson. Number 5, Joe Burrow. Number 6, Justin Fields. Number 7, Trevor Lawrence. Number 8, Justin Herbert. Number 9, surprise, surprise, Dak Prescott. Cowboys fans are going to love that. Number 10, Tua Tagovailoa. Number 11, Deshaun Watson. Number 12, Anthony Richardson. Number 13, starting off the C tier, and should probably go a little bit lower, is Mr. Moneybags, but no arm, Daniel Jones. Number 14, Kirk Cousins. We don't like that. Number 15, Russell Wilson. Hopefully, this will be a good ride with Bronco Country, and if not, this is going to be our last ride with Bronco Country. Number 16, the new Jet, Aaron Rodgers. Number 17, guy we're writing off a bit, Geno Smith. We know he finished at number 5 overall. And another guy we're writing off significantly is Jared Goff. Their team, the Detroit Lions, did not make many improvements. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a nice addition, but they lost some significant receivers. Right now, Josh Reynolds is looking as like the wide receiver number 2 until Jameson Williams is done serving his suspension. And for that, we're not high on Jared Goff. At number 19, we have Matthew Stafford, simply because he's a pro's pro and he's been there before. At number 20, we got a tie between Trey Lance and Jordan Love. And since we've drafted a significant amount of Trey Lance in the 18th to 20th round, we're hoping it's Trey Lance. Nevertheless, thank you guys for tuning in. We are going to be making more content and more videos like this. Please like the video, subscribe to our channel. We're really trying to make this channel grow. And I know it's June 4th and I'm the only idiot who's doing fantasy content, but it's okay, because when August rolls around, you guys are going to have all the information you need. Sign up on Drafters Fantasy Sports today to enter these huge best ball tournaments. Get up to $100 match with your initial deposit using code DISCODRAFTS1. If you use another code, you're an idiot because you only get 50% match. And you're not an idiot because you are watching this video. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Look forward to giving you guys more content. Let me know if you guys want more content like this, or if I should stick to the live stream. Speaking of the live stream, we are going to be changing our time from Monday to Friday. We are now going live at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time as opposed to 6 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks again, guys. Peace.